afternoon. Thank you, everyone, for joining us all day today. And as they say, we've saved the best till last. So we hope you have a fantastic last session with us. I would like to thank all our audience who are here today, and thank you to our panelists who, in a short while, I'll let them introduce themselves. But happy International Women's Day, ladies.
Happy International Women's Day.
For the audience, obviously the panels know who I am. We've had a bit of an intro ourselves. So for the audience, my name's Halima. I've worked in the field of diversity and inclusion and equality for over a decade now, and I'm really looking forward to moderating this panel with some amazing ladies. So saying that, I'll go straight into this and just have a bit of an introduction from you all, bit around who you are, bit of your background, and what EDI means to you, and then we'll hit into some questions for the session. So I'm going to just kind of go randomly here, and Noor, Ali, can we please go to you first?
Hi everyone, Slow. Thank you. So my name's Noor Ali. I've worked mainly in the retail sector. So I developed the World Foods category a very long time ago. And since then, all the retailers have sort of followed suit. So from Asda to then Morrison's and then back to Asda. That's what my work career is mainly. I've had a family supermarket of my own as well as an independent. So starting from there really. And then I do a lot of work outside of retail, basically, sort of more on the mentoring side, whether that's women in business, sort of small businesses as well, in terms of the challenges they face in getting out there, and mentoring young students as well. So keeping myself busy.
It sounds like it. You've definitely got quite a bit going on there, haven't you? Thank you for that, Noor. Naheed, can we move on to yourself?
Yeah, hi, thank you. So my name is Naheed Nasir, and I'm the Director of EDI at Manchester Metropolitan University. I've recently joined at the university, so I've been here about 8-9 months now. In terms of that, before that, I was previously working within the NHS. So I had a long career within NHS. But in the main, my focus, my passion is EDI. I've worked in EDI for too many years, 20 plus years now, in terms of that. That is my passion. I do some voluntary work as well. So I support a local community organisation. I'm one of their exec members, and also do mentoring at a local school that I used to go to. So I mentor some girls at the school there as well.
Thank you, Naheed. You know, I love that. I love that giving back to your school where you once went, and now you're there talking to young boys and girls. Sumbul.
Hi, my name's Sumbul Chinara. My pronouns are she, her. I work at a company called City Fibre. It's a male-dominated industry as an ESG reporting lead. I'm also the co-chair of the Gender Network, and I have a genuine passion for people, connecting with them and learning about their stories, and just I believe connections can take away so many misconceptions. So it's important for me to make every interaction count.
Thank you, Sumbul, and we'll definitely take a bit of a deeper dive into some of them misconceptions that people have. Last but not least, all the way from Canada, Roxana.
Hi, thank you. First of all, thank you for the opportunity. This is amazing when you are being tapped on your shoulder because you are a hijabi and a Muslim. So that's out of the norms. So thank you for that opportunity. My name is Roxana. I am a Canadian by choice for the last 20-30 years now. I have a boy, a girl, and a brat. My experience from work-wise in Canada is with IBM. I've been with the company for 25 years. And passion for EDI, for sure, because we are not part of the privileged. We are the underrepresented and the marginalized group. And I think EDI comes to me because when you are in a corporate environment, people who have questions, people who have concerns, they do come to you with them, which is a blessing. From a volunteer perspective, I have been volunteering within IBM for STEM for Girls for as many years as I've been with IBM, from year one till today. Outside of IBM, I sit on the Muslim community committee for the Chief of Police of Toronto, where we got the hijab part of the uniform. And also, I'm a board member for Tech Connect and with the Ansar Foundation, which is basically trying to eliminate poverty and providing food and shelter.
Thank you, Ruxana. I feel so privileged listening to the CVs over here and actually having an opportunity to chair this conversation. So as people know, this session is titled Amplifying Hidden Women's Voices. Definitely won't be hidden today. And one of the things we want to kind of go straight into is talking about your relationship with the hijab, why you wear it, what does it represent for you. So I'm going to go over to Naheed first. Do you want to just kick us off?
Yeah, so I think I had a bit of a love-hate relationship with the hijab, to be honest with you, to start off with. So I was the first in my family. So I'm the eldest of 7, and there's 5 sisters and there's 2 brothers. And I was the only one, I was the only one who started wearing the hijab. Why I say love-hate relationship was when I was at college actually studying, there used to be this brother who would stand outside the library and preach to everybody, all the girls who was not covering their heads. He would preach them saying, you should be covering and da-da-da. And I was like, I'm not having you telling me what to do. I'll do what I want to do when I want to do it. So I was like, I'm definitely not doing it because he said to do it and I'm not doing this. So that was like the hate type of the relationship. But then when I started working, I was wearing the loose scarf, and then I went to actually, well, I need to pin this up now because it's just getting in the way. And that's when I started wearing it, more confidently, and I wanted to wear it. And it came from me. Nobody told me to wear it. Even now, my husband, my mum, they don't like the fact that I wear it because my mum doesn't wear it, and she thinks I embarrass her because I wear it and she doesn't. But, in terms of that, I chose to wear it, and that was me. In terms of it just makes me feel more confident, makes me feel protected, and I feel safe with it on, and I do feel more confident with it on. So that's been my relationship so far with it. To be honest,
it sounds like there's almost an element of breaking down the kind of cultural myth of why people may think the hijab is worn, but also at the same time, it's provided you with a bit of it's your independence. You've chosen to do this. It's a freedom of expression for you.
Absolutely.
Sunbel, do you want to just come into the conversation there? Just tell us a bit about what it means for you.
Yeah, for me, what's quite interesting is everyone has their own journey. So mine is a little different. For me, it was freedom from the clutches of culture. So if I go a little bit deeper, I was divorced with a child at the age of 21, which meant I was ousted from the community. There was no standing for me. I didn't matter. I didn't exist. I didn't have a religious upbringing. It was very cultural, but religious was used as a way to oppress, which didn't pan out. So when I was 21, I went to some new Muslim classes with a friend, and I looked at how many rights were given to women. So these are God-given rights. I learned that being divorced and having a child and all of that actually makes you more special, more desirable. I learned there were so many rights. I could inherit property. There were so many grounds for me to separate from an abusive husband. So everything I was led to believe, I found is quite the opposite. So for me, I found my freedom and belonging within the religion, and that's when I embraced the hijab. And since then, I've been practicing in every manner, because hijab's meaning is actually modesty, and it's not just, as you're all aware, it's not just about the wrap around our head. It's more about how we behave, how we speak, how disciplined we are. So for me, it's almost that. And I did battle with it to start off with because I loved my hair. I dyed it all the time. It was so for me, it was something I gave up to gain empowerment and freedom and belonging. And I've never looked back from that, to be fair. And in terms of having these conversations, it's just, for me, there's such a negative image present of the hijab in front of so many people. I mean, on the panel, there are so many stories just simply today that I've been hearing that I resonate with. They're so similar to what I've been through. and those women are not wearing the hijab. So what I wanted to get across here is you can be oppressed without the hijab, and you can be oppressed with the hijab. So this just needs to be acknowledged.
Yeah,
Now, yeah,
really powerful words there. And early on, you kind of mentioned that before you kind of embarked on your own journey of understanding the religion, you were seeing the religion as oppressive. Do you want to just tell us a bit? Say that again. Sorry, the culture. Sorry, as oppressive. But do you find that quite a bit from kind of early childhood, that there is this mix or misunderstanding between culture and religion?
Yeah, I believe there's a huge one, and I put that down to the fact that. So I'm not going to try and make this really deep and really long. Try and summarize as short as in a short way. So the older generation didn't have access to all the resources we do today. So they couldn't just Google a translation of what the Quran says. So for context, the Quran is written in Arabic. Not every Muslim speaks Arabic. So we have Muslims who will learn to read Arabic, but they will not learn the understanding of it. So they trust imams who are in the mosque, equivalent to priests, etc., who will preach to them what the meaning is. Not all imams are educated. So what we get is a generation where they are just fueled with culture and whatever's being fed by the imams, political agenda, whatever there is in whichever country. And that is what is then fed down the throats of young girls. And it blocks them, it prevents them from growing, it prevents their education, it gets them, you see early marriages, you see them fail, you see all sorts of abuse taking place. And I believe we're in a better position now. But for me, that's where that stems from, that there's a huge difference between culture and religion. So when I say I've had a cultural upbringing, I was told I couldn't choose a husband because it was forbidden in the religion. When in the religion, there are no forced marriages and you have a choice to pick your own husband.
Said somewhere. Roxana, I can see you nodding your head over there. Do you want to come in and tell us a bit about your relationship with the hijab and what it means to you?
Oh, I completely agree with Sumbul. Is I loved my hair. So yes, for the longest till I got married, I was not observing hijab. And after my marriage, my mother-in-law, God bless her, she wanted me to do it. My husband at that time was very supportive of whatever my mother-in-law wanted, because it was, it was less ruckus and less differences within the family. So I started it, and I loved it because there is a sense of me and I'm important in my heart with that. Change of geographies, we came to Canada and he wanted me to take it off. By that time, that love and passion had grown so much that I didn't want to. Fast forward, my daughter was born, and when she was 8.5 years old, she said, Mama, I want to do hijab like you. And that brought my husband out, and he was like, no way, you are enough to be doing this. My daughter would not do it. But alhamdulillah, she's my child. I've been known to be a brown woman with a mouth on her. So I have raised a daughter who has that conviction and understanding of Islam from the very beginning. As Sumbul said, having available the translation and definitions in English is a huge help. And she, I started late, but I'm very proud to say that my child did it the way religion wants it to be done. And I think Sumbul very nicely covered it by saying that there is a huge mix in our culture, I would say, as a South Asian, of what our beliefs are from a religious perspective and our culture. It's a mixed, right? So, and wherever it is oppressive for women, which is coming from the culture, has been shoved down our throats as religion, which it is not. So again, even though it was, sort of imposed on me, but I'm very happy, and God bless her soul, that I started it, and it has been where I now, I have my daughter doing it, her friends who want to do it, they do it. Those who want to start to do it. I'm blessed that, they feel that they can come and have the conversation with me, and I mentor them and I help them understand what it is and how it is. And they do what they choose.
I love that, Roxana. Just they do what they choose. And that's the essence of everything, is that we have a choice. Noor, I'll just take it over to yourself, and then we'll hit into a bit more in a work-related setting.
Yes, so I think the first time I started wearing hijab was actually, I think it's 2006 when I did the Hajj. So it was actually the pilgrimage that I did, that I decided to then continue wearing it when I returned. The funny story is, though, that when I returned and was going back to work, I walked in and it was an office that didn't have very many ethnic people, let alone many hijabis. And my boss, who's not Muslim, took one look at me, and I started very early. I went to the office very early just to make myself feel comfortable, and because I knew that there was going to be a few looks going round. And he turned around and he looked at me and he says, "Noor, is everything okay?" And I went, yeah, everything's fine. He said, you look a bit different. And I went, oh, yeah, it's because I've been away. I've done the Hajj. And he said, no, you look a little bit more different than that. I said, has somebody died? And I thought, I'm thinking, where's it going? But I straight away said, look, Phil, let's go have a coffee. Let's have a chat. And then I can explain a little bit more about it. So I think at that time, it was very, obviously, not many people were wearing it. But I think what it means for me, as I think about it, is it's actually a part of me. It's actually been I think already mentioned, is that you become a bit of a role model. It's actually a responsibility to wear it, but I think it's like a friend. It keeps me away, keeps me dry in the rain. I wear it when I wear the colors I feel the mood in. So if I'm going to a wedding, it's going to be really sparkly. If I'm sad, I'm probably, sorry, no, sorry, you've got it on, but I wear really dark colors. So when I'm happy and my favorite colors are purples, I wear that. So, it's actually becomes part and parcel of you, matching your clothes with it. So, and my daughter wears it too. So, that's my story. But it is a responsibility to have it as well.
But I love that. I love how it's obviously a freedom of expression for you, but you get to express that in so many different ways through colours as well, which is brilliant. What I was going to say is, and I should mention it at the start as well, is we will have a Q&A with the audience at the end, so questions will come through and we will put them to you towards the end. So to our audience that are listening, please feel free to ask away, and hopefully we'll have enough time at the end to get some of them questions. I won't promise all of them, depending on how many come in, but we will pick some questions to ask our panelists. I want us to kind of move on. Noor, you mentioned it a little bit there about going into a workplace wearing the hijab. And I want us to move the conversation on a little bit now to the workplace. And it would be really interesting to hear your views as our panelists. How do you navigate conversations and education actually around diversity and inclusion in the workplace, especially as somebody who identifies as a Muslim woman? So I'll just throw that out to anybody who wants to come on and answer that first.
I don't mind.
Sorry, go ahead. You want to take it on, Lee?
I don't mind going first there. So I'm going to say, obviously, working in EDI and EDI issues, I've been doing that. That's been a passion of mine. I've been doing that since day one within my roles. But one of the things that I do tend to share with people, and it's just this one sentence, and I'll share it with you guys here today, is that my colour, my faith walk into the room before I do. And that's quite a powerful statement to make. And I think it's when you make it and then you just leave a bit of a silence, just to let that settle with people, let them acknowledge that. And then I tend to get questions on, well, what do you mean by that? With regards to, no, it doesn't. We see you, Naheed, as Naheed. And I was like, no, you don't, because I've personally experienced that when I've been walking into committee meetings or board meetings, whichever room that I walk into, if at a workplace or whether it's in the hospital appointment or whatever people first of all assume that because I'm wearing the headscarf and because I'm a different colour, I don't speak English. I'm in the wrong place. Am I the interpreter that people have booked and I'm in the wrong building? And then when I actually open my mouth and say who I am and what I'm here for, you can see the colour drain from their face. So it's the misconceptions and the stereotypes that come associated with the headscarf and with the hijab as well. And, there's lots of negative connotations attached to that. And I think in society, people just view an Asian woman, a South Asian woman, a quiet person who doesn't talk, who walks 3 steps behind her husband or the male within the family. And it's all those stereotypical, viewpoints that we see that are played out as well. And they are played out, like someone was saying earlier on, with the elders within our community, because that's how they were brought up. And those are teachings then that handing down, to girls, within their families as well. So I think that, just that sentence means a lot. It's very powerful. And actually to open up a conversation as well with regards to that. But I think it is about, knowledge is power. And, sharing that little bit of knowledge and a little bit of awareness with people and, empowering them and enabling them as well, creating a safe environment where people can actually have that conversation with you as well, because that's the only way you're going to actually, get rid of those barriers and destroy those stereotypical viewpoints that are actually out there, and actually show them, well, actually, no, it's not just like that. It's like this as well.
Yeah, and I think you've mentioned it there. There's obviously preconceived ideas, stereotypes, and inherent bias that's coming with when people see women wearing that hijab. I won't probe too deep into this, Nahid, but obviously, given what you've just mentioned about the stereotypes that people make when they first see you, how does that make you feel?
At first it used to really frustrate me. I used to get quite angry, and it's almost like, no, I'm going to show you who I really am. And now I've just come to the point as like, we grow thick skin, don't we? And it's almost like we grow rhino skin, because it's those microaggressions that we face on a daily basis, and we face them actually on a daily basis. As soon as we step foot outside our door, the journey that we make to work every morning, I know I plan out, okay, well, I'm not going to go down that road again because, somebody hurled abuse at me while I was driving, or I'm not going to park there because somebody made a comment about me wearing a hijab. And it's though, and going to the supermarket, I'm not going to go to that checkout because she didn't even speak to me. She just pointed to the number, the total on the screen. And it's those daily microaggressions that we face on a daily basis. And you know what? They become the norm, and you just absorb them as a person. But then the impact of that, the weathering impact that has on an individual and on their mental health and well-being is absolutely phenomenal. And we need to change. We need to change that circle.
No, thank you for sharing that, Nahid, and thank you for sharing how it's made you feel. I can appreciate, obviously it's probably not easy sharing that, but I think it's really important for our audience to hear that's the human side of this as well. Sumbul, do you want to just come in and tell us a bit about your workplace and how you navigate the conversations?
Yeah, so I have this really strong belief that we've got to connect in similarities before we can start talking about what we choose to wear or what we look like or what colour we are. So I always approach from that angle. For me, it's very important to find a connection. So just like Nahid said, there are people who see you and think you can't speak English, or they will automatically turn away from you, etc. I have experienced a multitude of things in my life, but the way I've dealt with that is I start the conversations. And I know we talk about how it should be the other people's responsibility to educate themselves, etc. But I'm a strong believer that it has to come from us as well. So for me, I will always make the first interaction and shock them in a way. And that interaction, if successful, will mean that they will go and talk to other people within their networks, and they might hire somebody, or they might consider, I don't know, striking a friendship with somebody who does wear the hijab, etc. So for me, removing those barriers are very, very important. I did in my children's old school. I actually went in and we did this whole kind of scenario where you show the children what it's like in a household where the mum wears a headscarf, just to show to them that it's all very, very same. The routines are the same. They're eating the same types of food, just a halal version of it. They're playing the same games. That everything is exactly the same within the homes, just so it removes any, it normalizes it, and that's kind of my mission. So I think I have to speak up for myself because no one else is going to do that. And I've seen great evidence of how that's worked within my workplace. It's been received really well. In addition to this, we did this whole exercise where we ran a webinar and we spoke to people about the boundaries. So for example, you go to an event, somebody might lean in for a hug. Now, I don't hug. Some do shake hands, some do not. I do shake hands personally. That's my choice, so I do that. And we discussed how to address this, and this is where allyship comes in. So I have some great colleagues, because at the beginning of my journey, I didn't feel very confident. I felt if I say no to a hug or anything like that, I will leave that interaction in a negative way, and then that will leave a negative impact on them of women wearing a headscarf. Now, that is a lot to carry for one person, but I feel it will make a difference for, our daughters, for example. So when they step out into the world, it's easier for them. So I struggled to say no to those hugs offered, etc. So I've got great allies, great colleagues who stood up and kind of did that for me. And that built up my confidence then to speak up myself.
Well, I was going to say, if anyone's read Harry's memoir Spare, it might just be a British thing, because apparently we just don't hug here. Roxana, I see you wanted to come in there.
Absolutely. So I'm a bit more naughtier than I would say Naheed, because when I walk in and I see a group that is not familiar with me, that is not familiar with my style, or somebody who they may have had interactions with who is a hijabi, I introduce myself and I introduce, within my introduction, I tell them that I'm Roxana, and I never have a bad hair day, which is an icebreaker, and it is true. If you think about it, a lot of days might be not as pleasant as others. If you are having a good hair day or a bad hair day, and plus, it gives me the perk of matching all the time. The colors that I'm wearing within my suit, within my outfits, I just, I can elaborate on those colors with hijab. And when we talk about the reality of inclusion and empowerment, in my education that we do within IBM on unconscious bias or conscious inclusion, this is part of that empowerment, that people would allow others to portray themselves as they want to, whether it be religious, whether it be a mental health cover that they need, the protection that they feel, it's part of that. So when we talk about inclusion, empowerment, I think it all comes together as the workplace culture. And when you are in a workplace environment, all these things. So for example, when I'm introducing myself under the intersectionality, I do share with them that I'm a mom. Like I have boys and girls. I have the privilege to have had education. I have the privilege of, and all of them. And when I come towards, I'm a Muslim, I'm a hijabi Muslim, I'm a South Asian hijabi Muslim. That explains the concept of intersectionality very clearly. And people, using my own example, my own privileges, it just takes that negative connotation from privilege overall in a workplace. And I tell them that, use it by all means to explain yourself to others, because that's what education is all about. That's all knowledge is about. And I have had calls as a Muslim SME within IBM where the case had happened in another part of the world. And the sales team approached me and they said, this is what has happened. How do we deal with it? Because even for my sales team, they know I am a safe place to learn. What you don't know, slap me, ask the question, and I will be more than happy to explain it to you. So if I am open to educating others, I think people are very open to embrace that and ask questions. And I tell them that, it's a no penalty field. So whatever you want to ask, ask.
I was just going to say, just coming in there around, being at work, what I found really funny is that this is in my previous workplace, that whenever anybody swore, they would swear, then they would automatically turn around to me and apologize.
I want the same.
Really sorry, Naheed. And I was like, you've probably offended other people in this room as well, but you've turned around and apologized to me. And so it's not because you're holy. And I'm like, what do you mean I'm holy? I've got a halo on top of my head or something, and it's like they would, and that's happened. It's not happened so far in my new place of work, but it's happened in every other organization I've worked in. So they would always turn around and apologize to me when they would swear.
Naheed, if there's anybody from your organisation listening, you know that somebody's going to swear tomorrow. Noor, do you want to just come in as well?
Yeah, I couldn't say the same story. I mean, as soon as I started wearing it and going into meetings, somebody would say something and say, "Oh, sorry, Noor," and I said, "I don't know why you're apologising to me." And it's like, so, but yeah, I think I've not changed myself. I'm still being the bubbly person, still being, the one who I am. And I think the thing is about how does it get to a point where they're not actually, like you've said, seeing you as a different person coming into that room first. And I think now, it's at a stage where it's not my headscarf that's gone in first. It's just Noor. It's who she is. And I think they see that nothing's changed about me. And I'm still the same one. I'm still the one that's, fighting all the battles and, being who I am. So I think that's really important, that people they're not seeing that you've actually become somebody different. And I think that's quite important, because I think that's what then makes people comfortable around you to be able to do that. But I've often joked, and I've said, I've told people I'm blonde under here, and it's just, again, it's just, it's just having a bit of a laugh around it so that they feel comfortable that they can talk about it or ask questions about it.
And I think that's really important. And Roxana, you've mentioned it as well. You actually bring humour to the conversation. So what we're doing is we're creating psychological safety for people to be able to feel like they can have these conversations and not look at somebody and think, oh, I don't know what the right thing to say or what isn't the right thing to say. Because I've always sort of said to people is, I would rather you said and got it wrong and we just had a really adult conversation about this than just not say anything at all. I'm going to go over to a couple of questions from our audiences, because we're getting quite a few in and I don't just want to leave them all till the end and then we run out of time. We've had so anyone feel free to answer this once I've just gone over the question. So we've had a question from Justin saying, do you think that a lack of understanding and negative media coverage instills fear in people when spotting someone in a hijab?
I would say if you ask anybody in any country, let alone North America, what their perception of, and I'm talking about non-Muslim countries, what their perception of Islam is, right? It is bombing, it is killing. I would be in meetings and, sometimes you're watching something and I would say, Allahu Akbar. And then my kids, when we were traveling, they would say, Mama, what's wrong with you? So the term of Allahu Akbar, I was using that as an example when there were images on TV from this last earthquake. And I said, it's not to destroy. You can see that when they find a live person in that rubble, everybody goes with Allahu Akbar. That's true Islam, is we are saying God is great against all hardships. But yet, from media, if you hear Allahu Akbar, it's always before a bomb blast. It is always because of something negative. People, I think the perception of, specifically coming back to this conversation of hijab and oppression in Muslim women, media has done their work on what the cultural norms of oppression to women are, and they have given that a name to the religion for it. And I think people like Sumbul and myself and Nahid and Anur are examples of how we are not. Absolutely. So it's just a matter of somebody asking rather than watching something on media and thinking that it's true.
I'd just like to come in on that as well. What Ruxana said is absolutely spot on. But what I'd like to question here is, what statistics are there out there to say that hijabi women are something to fear, to start off with? I understand all this terrorism and everything that the news goes on about, but what factual information is out there of women in hijab causing harm to anybody, for starters? Second point is, what was the second point? Second point is, the hijab is a piece of cloth, and I've got into debates with many people who say hijab is a symbol of oppression, or hijab is what oppresses women. It is a piece of cloth. I mean, it's a piece of cloth. So I don't understand how it can cause so much damage to anybody. There are issues out there. The issues here are of choice. It's about what choices are given to people who choose not to, who have the choice and who don't have the choice. Actually, that's what the issue is here. But fearing the hijab makes no sense to me. I think the other point Noor mentioned about us being able to, and Ruxana as well, being open to answering questions. I think if the fear they're referring to is about asking the question and having a negative kind of result as a back of that, then that's understandable. But for me and my own experience and who I am as a person, if anybody was to come and ask me a question about my hijab, I would not be offended by it whatsoever. I would want to answer it.
Can I just come in there as well? I absolutely agree with you there. And in terms of the question being asked, do we think there's a lack of understanding and the negative media coverage instills fear? Absolutely. And I think that's been clearly articulated by each and one of us here, that it is about that lack of understanding, and it is about providing those safe spaces where people can have those conversations and not feel as though they're not being politically correct, or they're going to get something wrong and they'll get whacked with a grievance or a disciplinary or what have you. So it is about creating those safe spaces to have those conversations in the first instance. And isn't it about time that media did have a positive role model around hijabis rather than the negative connotations that we see that are associated to it from day one? It would be nice to actually say, we've seen some of that in some of the models, and in terms of modeling of the new hijabs and sport and what have you. Don't you think it's 2023? Can we move on now, please?
There's definitely a role for the media to play. Noor, I wanted to just kind of move on a bit, and I have a question for you, which is also coming from Justin as well. It's not specifically for you, but actually I appreciate. I'd just like to ask you this question. Is one of the things he's mentioned is obviously just wearing the hijab, and what Justin is wondering is, if you didn't wear one, would someone in your own religion think you were a lesser of a believer? Do you feel like you lose that sense of belonging if you didn't wear one?
So I think if I wore it and then stopped wearing it, I definitely think that would happen. But I think if I didn't wear it at all, I think people will just see you as you are. I don't think religion comes into it. I think we've already mentioned that when somebody is wearing a hijab, they suddenly are seen as a different person. They suddenly are seen as religious has come as part of this. And I think we forget that, you only have to look at the internet and how, it's hard to find, lots of the different hijabs out there, and it's become a massive fashion icon. I remember when the Apprentice started, and I started seeing loads of media around, the receptionist has got a hijab on. I'm like, what's that got to do with anything? But I think this kind of positive is going to be good for the people that are wearing it. And I think we've just got to, it is, for some people, it's still a fashion. and it's not about religion. And I think that's what the importance is here. We've got to make people feel that just because somebody's wearing it, they're not become somebody very close to religion or is now preaching as a religious person. And I think that's the understanding that we need out there from everybody.
I think it's a really interesting one on, obviously, do people feel like you're lesser of a believer due to wearing a hijab? Like, I'm a Muslim as well, and I've done my Hajj pilgrimage. I've been blessed enough to do that as well, but I still don't wear a hijab. I don't feel like I've made that connection to that garment yet. But actually, would I turn around and say I'm lesser of a believer than somebody who does wear one? I can't answer that because I don't know. You know, people have very different spectrum of belief and faith and how they practice.
Halima, in your family, in your members of family, how do you think they, once you've done the Hajj and things like that, have they said or seen anything? Have they done anything that made you feel that, I should be wearing it because I've done that?
My immediate
Sorry, I know
family.
I'm not supposed to question you.
No, that's absolutely fine. Ask the moderator. But no, look, my immediate family hasn't said anything to me. However, I have had comments made by extended family, and a couple of friends. But I've just been really honest, and I've said, I'm not ready for that. And maybe when I get a sign, or maybe when something significant happens in my life, and I feel that connection, I will. But I believe that I was ready to do my pilgrimage, and I'm back, and I'm trying to be a better person, a Muslim. But that relationship with the hijab just isn't there for me. But that doesn't. Would I know if I'm any less or more of a Muslim? Then I don't know. I can't answer that. It's only one person that can answer that.
Yeah, the only thing why I asked that was I have got a family member who started wearing it and stopped wearing it, and I think people saw that as a lesser religious person, or there's something happened within religion that stopped that person. And actually, I know that person is even more fully practicing than what I do.
I suppose that goes back to them assumptions. There's a question coming from Connor. So many people today have said regarding the workplace that businesses could appeal to a wider audience by tailoring, their adverts the right way. So we're looking at use of gender neutral language, promoting work-life balance. So from your own personal points of view, do you have any examples of either good or bad things that you have come across that has drawn you in, or any examples of something that you would want to see but rarely have?
So I think if you look at the workplace, how you hire is very important. So, in my in the company that I'm in, and the example that I use always is that globally we have a consistent program for how to interview, right? And then the EDI courses and education and knowledge base is essential for the recruiters, for talent acquisition team, because unless they understand the nuances of EDI completely, they will never be able to respect, something different. So the first thing is, if we are sending them to assess qualifications, they have to leave their personal judgment outside the door. To me, that's the basic. That's what I start with, is leave your unconscious biases outside. Look at what the person is bringing to the table as the question, and judge the response based on that, not their appearance. Because there's a lot of not only just hijab, it is for people with diverse abilities, the indigenous people, the visible minorities, based on what country you are talking about, you would see that all of those things happen because people are judging. So whether it be if you are more religious or not, if you are, what you bring to the table, if you have the qualifications, look at the qualifications and leave that judgment and bias outside. That's the only way companies can bring in more talent. When I was in sales, I'm big on storytelling. When I was in software sales, I went and I was supposed to meet with a client and sign up this deal. And he came down, he came to the reception. I was standing there and he looked around. I did not come forward, right? Because from the calls, he was looking for Roxana. He was not looking for Roxana Sayed. So Roxanne, okay, that's fine. And he comes down and he leaves. He looks around and he leaves. As soon as the elevator doors shut down, I called his cell and I said, how rude. Why would you go back without saying hi to me? And he said, oh, you are BSing. You weren't there. I said, come out. He came and I told him, I said, you are wearing a blue shirt. Maybe your jacket is upstairs because you are wearing a tie. And he said, no, you weren't there. He came out and I stepped forward and I said, IBM looks like this too. And we signed that contract that day because he was trying to make up, not that the product wasn't good. But what I mean to say with that example is if we take care of our personal judgment and biases, any place, whether it be workplace, whether it be your family, whether it be your relationships and with in-laws, your neighbors, that judgment and that bias is the culprit, whether it be hijab or not. For hijabis, I would only just say that when people are talking about them, my only piece is whether it be media or not, you need to have me at the table. When I say me, a hijabi Muslim woman, do not make assumptions, right? Because Halima, as if I'm having a conversation about Muslim women, I would rather have people have somebody who wears a hijab and somebody who doesn't, both at the table, because our perceptions, our experiences, our knowledge, our convictions are all very different, and yet similar at the same time. But give us this place at the table when you are talking about me. That's my biggest piece with media and overall.
I love that, Roxana. It's that lived experiences. Anybody else just want to share any successes that they've had on initiatives or workplace campaigns around EDI?
I mean, it's something I haven't seen, but I'd like to see is the flexibility around Ramadan being mentioned in a job description. That would be a great one, because even though there are flexible practices taking place in many workplaces, they're not sold to you. So you actually go in blind, not knowing what is available. So if that's on a job description, that can be quite attractive for Muslims.
Do you feel, Sumbul, that should probably be extended to faith in general? Just to show that on a job description, that actually as an organisation we are faith inclusive, and then them conversations can happen, obviously if somebody's successful for that role. But such a valid point.
Yeah, I was just going to say as well, having role models, so somebody who looks like me within the organisation that I'm going to be potentially going to work at. Nowadays, we Google everything, don't we? So we can Google and we can see what images are people actually using. Are they actually inclusive and diverse in the images that they're using to advertise as well? So that is really, really important. Do I see somebody who looks like me that I can aspire to, or work alongside as well? So that's really important in terms of having those role models. But also as well, I think it is about the language that you use as well. It needs to be inclusive, just like Roxana was saying as well. And Sumbul is that sometimes when you're going for interviews, or you're going to for a new place or a new job, you do have that imposter syndrome as well, don't you? In terms of, should I ask this? If I ask this, am I going to be held back? Because if I raise something about my religion, should I ask about prayer room, if one's available or not? Or do I take it in my break, or do I not? So I think, like you said, Halima, having that, we have ECLOP statements, don't we, at the bottom of job descriptions, very generic, but I think it's time for them to change. I think we need to make them more pertinent and related to the roles, but also to relate to the job market in terms of who we're actually looking to employ as well. So I think we need to change the language that we're actually utilising, but actually having those role models is vital.
Thank you, Naheed, for that. We've talked about a couple of good examples that people have given of what more can we do. I'd be interested to hear if there's anything that's made the hairs underneath your hijab stand up, and you've just thought, that's a car crash. How did that happen? Or actually that's been a failure, or maybe even something that your organisation has tried to do and it's not quite panned out. It'd be good to hear from the other side as well. We always talk about successes, but actually, what are some of the challenges or some of the stuff that you've seen that you've maybe called out?
Well, when I first started wearing the hijab, I turned up. So I was in work without a hijab up until one day I turned up with a hijab. My line manager completely changed towards me. He started talking about terrorism. Are you going to marry a man with a beard and go and do all sorts of horrible things? It was not pleasant at all. And this was just because I turned up in a headscarf. He was dismissed, but it took a while. He was dismissed for his behavior. But I also felt a lot of people who would normally have a conversation with me didn't want to, or didn't interact with me in the same way, where I had to go and confront them as to why that was the case. And we're going back 12 years. So we've definitely come a long way from then, where I don't think there were any policies or any education around it. I mean, I don't remember attending anything D&I related within that business at that time. Just wanted to share that.
Yeah.
Just so sorry that you actually have to go through that. And, I know I'm saying sorry, but again, I know I asked you the question at the start there, Nahid, and I you can share this if you want, somebody, but, how does that make somebody feel when they are being questioned in such a way? And as you put it so nicely, Sumbul, is that for a piece of cloth, fundamentally for a piece of cloth to be treated that way.
I think just on that, sorry, what you were saying, I think there is change needed where the organisation is looking at, whether it's a team building exercise, whether it's meetings, whether it's going out, it's always, let's go out for drinks, let's go out, it's always appealing to the majority. But I think there are changes that need to be made to employers and to managers to sort of look at that inclusivity and what that might look like to incorporate everybody in there. So I think there's still more work to be done around that. Whatever meeting there is always going to be an after drinks. Does it need to be an after drinks? Could it be just a meal? Could it just incorporate other people? And if people are saying no again and again, nobody's really asking, well, how come you never come there? Or how come you don't go to the pub? Or how come you don't come in for that celebration meal? Whatever that is, then there's still more work to be done from a HR point of view.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree there with you, Noor, as well. And it's also the assumption that because you don't eat meat, you don't eat pork, and that means that you're a vegetarian. So you're always ticked into the vegetarian box. When they're selecting for food, rather than, well, actually, no, I'm actually a meat eater. Can you provide halal meat? I don't like vegetables, so why am I going to want to eat them? So that's always been a bugbear, and one thing for me, constantly. I used to walk around when I used to go to meetings and conferences with a cup of soup in my bag, just in case there was nothing that I could have, because again, you'd have the platters with the sandwiches, with the tuna and the egg sandwiches on the same platter as the chicken and the meat platters, but it's okay because they're not touching each other, but yet they're on the same platter. So, we've come a long way from those days, but I think there's still so much room for improvement with regards to that. And I can remember back in my early days in my career that I had a senior manager who said to me that I needed to, if I was thinking about progressing within that particular organization, then I needed to think seriously about the way I present myself visibly. And I was like, what do you mean? And it's like, well, I think you need to do something about the way you dress if you want to progress further. And that really shocked me, because this is my line manager who was sharing this with me, who'd come from another senior manager. And I was like, but this is who I am. Visibly, this is who I am, and this is my identity. So either you take me for who I am, and actually, I should get promoted on my skills and my talents and my ability, not the way I look. And so that I'm one of those people that if somebody tells me not to do something, or you shouldn't do it like that way, I dig my heels in further and say, I'm going to show you what I can do, and I will do that. And I go out my way. I see it as a challenge to prove them wrong. And alhamdulillah, I have done, and I've I got that promotion and moved up within the organization. It took a lot longer to do that, but I was determined to do it on my grounds. I wasn't going to bow down to anybody in terms of my own principles, which mean a lot to me. So it's either take me who as I am, or don't take me at all.
Good for you, Naheed, and that's because we are empowered women. That's why we won't back down, especially when something's challenging us. That feels like an injustice. We've got a question here from Liz, and I'm conscious we're only 5 minutes away. So I'll just ask this question, and I know, Noor, you've put an answer in, so I'll just, if you want to just take yourself off mute. So can you share any helpful insights and language on Ramadan for job specs?
So yeah, I mean, in part of my role in terms of when I've worked for retailers, I've landed Ramadan events, festivals, in from a commercial point of view, from a ranging perspective. I don't think it needs to change in terms of specifically on Ramadan. I think we've talked earlier that we need to incorporate all faiths, and you know, I know in retailers there are now prayer rooms, it's multi-faith rooms. It is about incorporating everybody and not specifically on something like Ramadan. And I think, you know, there's this I've had before where people have said, oh, do we need to try and put some other additional languages into there? But, you know, again, we're not trying to, everybody's educated, everybody's got the English language. I think we don't need to be doing things that then sort of marginalize people. I think it is this incorporate inclusivity. I think that's really important, that the HR managers, one thing they do need to do is make sure there is no unbiased going on in terms of interviewing. So, you know, if they are, you know, I've heard that people within who are interviewing will make a decision probably in the first 5 seconds of somebody walking in the room. Now, is that something based on how they look, or is it the hijab, or have they already made a perception of that person? And again, there's probably a little bit more work to be done about training managers to incorporate that inclusivity.
Yeah, it's interesting when people say that about making a judgment of someone within the first few seconds. For me, like you
One
said,
more.
I think it straight away hits into there's clearly some bias and stereotyping going on then. I'm conscious of time. We're a few minutes away. We haven't managed to get through all the questions, so I'm really sorry for anybody that has asked a question and we've not got around to it. I mean, where's that hour gone? I think we could be here for another hour, but I'm conscious that Dylan wants to wrap up with some closing remarks. But before I pass over to Dylan, I would just like to go around the room and just ask what would be your final thoughts that you'd really like to leave our audience with. And we'll start off with you, Ruxana.
Thank you. From a work perspective, I think it is very important, just like now, there was a time where disabilities were thrown out the door and they were not even considered human. We have accommodations policies in the workplace. My final thoughts are that we need to have a religious accommodation policy that opens for, you know, for accommodations for all faiths, just not hijab, just not Muslims. You know, what is if somebody is doing a Lent versus if somebody's fasting because they are Muslims? Both of them deserve to have a policy in place which are accommodated. So in a perfect world, those would be the things that are taken care of. And those are the things that, you know, you initiate, just like, you know, handy links to have. Why not have a resource where people can link and learn more? You know, Google is the best source. Look up for good things and learnings. And I believe that, you know, each one of us with our own personal biases, with our own personal things that we have, you know, in the back of our heads that makes us, you know, not so good. It's the responsibility is on us to make ourselves better and make our surroundings better.
Thank you, Ruxana. Just before I come to you, Sunbel, Michael, if you're still listening, you're our favourite audience member. Michael just said this has been his favourite session. So, Sunbel, over to you.
For me, I would just urge everyone to have a conversation with somebody in the hijab. Just understand we're not all the same. We're all individuals. Just like you have people who choose to have piercings or tattoos, or someone who doesn't want to have anything. It is the same. We just choose to dress a little bit different. And I think you just need to remember that when you're interacting, and just don't put us all in one bucket, because we are all so different and we're on our own little paths. How we've arrived here is so different and interesting. strike that conversation. That's it.
Thank you, Sumbul. I have an apology. Actually, it was Michelle, not Michael, so I clearly can't read either. so Michelle, thank you for this being your favourite session. Noor.
So I've going to put it into three things just quickly. So I'd say for those who are looking at anyone that's got hijab, just be conscious of it and don't treat them differently at all. Just treat them as you normally would. I think the second thing I'd say is those that are wearing it, enjoy it. Absolutely. Let's have fun. It doesn't change you as a person, but be yourself and have some fun and look great. Fantastic. And I think the third final thing is, anybody know any great websites that have got some really nice headbands? Because I can't find any. Can you let me know, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Noor. Naheed.
Yeah, just I totally agree with everything that everybody said. Noor, Roxana, and Sumbul as well. For me, I think it's about be the role models for others to aspire to be, and be that inspiration for others to follow as well. Be yourself. Don't change for anybody. Be true to yourself. In terms of that, and I hope that by people listening into the panel today, that people have been inspired by listening to some of our stories as well, and hopefully they'll be, they'll aspire to go out and do something themselves as well. And I think the most important message here, and everybody said it, is don't be afraid. Go and have that conversation. Go and ask. It's better to ask and get it right than assume and get it wrong.
Yeah. Thank you, Naheed. Well, thank you so much, lady. It's been a massive privilege for me to be able to moderate that.